Okay, Jason, Heather, Ted, Bruce, and Nathan. Okay, we got 5. All right, let's go. You ready? All right, let's call this meeting to order and stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, good evening, everybody. Let's start off with the roll call, please. Chandra?
Alderman Elder?
Here.
Alderman Flores?
He's coming in. Give him just a second. He'll be here.
Okay, we'll come back to him. Alderman Galloway? Bruce?
Bruce, you're muted. You got him?
Here.
Okay,
Thank you.
got it.
Alderman Flores?
Here.
Thank you. Alderman Poston?
Here.
Alderman Schaefer?
Here.
Alderman Smith?
Here.
We have 6 aldermen present. We have a quorum.
All right, very fine. All right, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of November the 2nd?
So moved.
Schaefer, and a second, please. Poston? I thought I saw Poston, yeah. Okay, motion made by Alderman Schaefer, seconded by Poston to approve the minutes of November the 2nd. All in favor? Ready? Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of November the 5th?
Your Honor,
Yes.
I have a correction on those.
Yes, sir. Go for
I
it.
was actually absent at that meeting, but I did double check him and it shows me as voting aye, and I was absent at that meeting.
Oh, okay.
All present voting aye. Oh, okay, that was on 3198. I'm just trying to clarify what you said.
On the
the
special
meeting-
meeting minutes,
Yes?
I was not,
Oh, I
Sorry.
see.
oh, never mind. I'm sorry. I guess I was looking at the wrong one. Nope. My apologies, Your Honor. I'm good. Never mind.
Okay. All right. Okay, so on the minutes of November the 5th, forgot where we were. Do we have a motion to approve? Was there a
Hold on.
motion?
Sorry, Your Honor. I'm back. Sorry. I apologize one more time.
That's all right.
Yeah, it is on. Yeah, it is on Bill 3198. It shows everybody voted aye.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, I was absent.
Okay.
I'll make the correction. Thank you. It's on the 2nd.
And that, yes, and that was on November the 5th. All right.
Yes.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the amended or the corrected minutes from November the 5th? Somebody, Mr. Smith, is there a second? Mr. Flores, thank you. All in favor? All right, thank you very much. All right, we have a visitor, Ms. Seitz. We can see you and can we hear you? Good evening.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can. Please proceed.
Wonderful. Well, I appreciate that. And thank you for having me this evening. It's always a pleasure to get to address the Board of Aldermen. And this one is long overdue. As I met with each of you and discussed in the last couple weeks, these are questions and discussions that we wanted to start having much earlier in the year. But as we know, we've all had to pivot and just roll with the punches. So what I would like to do is walk you through, again, just a brief overview of the 5-year action plan that is proposed. As you all know, the original 5-year memorandum of understanding that was signed between the City of Ozark, the City of Nixa, and Christian County government does expire at the end of 2020. And it is certainly our goal, as we have proposed to the other 2 incorporators, to continue the work that we're doing. And we would love to have your full support on that. So is it okay if I share my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
You need to do anything? Okay.
Okay, can you see this?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So this is the same document that I provided to all of you in advance of our one-on-one meetings, and just wanted to reference the same so in case you had that in front of you. As I discussed during COVID, and especially through the thick of the stay-at-home orders, we learned of two immediate priorities that we needed to focus on. And those two immediate priorities were already within our 5-year plan. This just put the spotlight on those for the next year and how we pursue these specifically. Just as a reminder, when we as an organization were through that time frame, we were able to pivot and adapt rapidly because of our size and how we are built to be a nimble organization. We took that opportunity to, as you'll see on your screen, learn about, listen to, adapt our approach so that our communities could continue to thrive in the wake of COVID-19. And with that, the first of these priorities that I've walked you through is Christian County Works. And this can be found within the goal 3 of the plan and action step 2 there. We did launch a jobs board on our website, and we really want to continue the work that we've done through that jobs board, making sure that we're working with all entities across the county to upskill our existing workforce and help our students that are graduating into this new economy so that they are better prepared. As you can see, and hopefully you've read through, there are several action steps and items that we want to pursue in that goal, and happy to take any questions at any point in time. I'll move right along into Fortify Christian County, and this is the second of those immediate priorities. Fortify Christian County is a resiliency certification that we did have in our original 5-year plan under business retention and expansion in goal 1. This is a program that we want to implement both through one-on-one mentorships and classes and courses that we'll do in partnership with the Small Business Development Center, who we've already penned a partnership with. And this will walk our business owners through a financial analysis so that they are better prepared to save cash back for those rainy day instances, identify threats to their business, not just in the midst of the pandemic, but also things like an IT hack, maybe a family member that has a controlling interest, and things like that. Immediately after identifying those emergencies, we want to assist them in creating a plan to respond to those. And again, working with our partners in which to do that. And lastly, for those industries in which it applies, we want to help them adapt to the e-commerce climate that we find ourselves in so that they are doing that most effectively. Any questions on those immediate 2 priorities, or would you like me to give the brief refresher on the 3 goals within our 5-year strategic plan? No questions?
Any questions?
Okay. All right, I'll keep rolling.
Keep rolling.
Again, as a refresher, we have 3 overarching goals within our 5-year strategic plan. And just to reiterate the fact that the work that was done originally in 2012 and 2013 was a big foundation for this plan. So it's very important to us. Those plans are not sitting on the shelf. We've been actively pursuing those in part over the last 5 years, and then 2.5 as staff. So goal 1, of course, is the traditional economic development, where we are focusing on business retention and expansion, our attraction efforts, and then also entrepreneurship. And you have these organized in stair steps to identify all 3 of those priority areas. For key measurements, we do have the formation of a lot of these programs, but we want to, over the next 5 years, aid directly 120 businesses, and also create and retain 400 daytime jobs with a target average salary of $40,000 per year, significantly above the average wage that we find ourselves in 2020. We also want to directly impact $25 million in capital investment. And again, that can be through our concierge services that we currently provide to leads and businesses that want to grow or expand into the county, or recruiting these businesses specifically. So it's anything that we can do to add value to that business in their process of landing here in the county. And we have the target industries identified for you there, as we have gone through several planning phases to really look at what we have here as a workforce and our regional assets to come up with that list. Goal 2 is fostering a business-friendly environment for Christian County by collaborating with all of our government entities, including our planning and development departments and public works. And we want to host roundtable discussions and open up opportunities for our elected officials and city staff to hear directly from those that are involved in development, to hopefully get the read on what it's like in the trenches, so to speak, and how we can improve on our processes and streamline those things across the county. And for goal 3, we have building a strong sense of identity in Christian County as a magnet for talent in the Southwest region. As projected to be the single fastest growing county in the state of Missouri, we find this naturally a lot. But this is ensuring that we're doing everything that we can to continue that pace and to react to it appropriately. So you'll find things in this goal like our marketing efforts and wayfinding signage that's been recommended to us. Again, this is a 5-year plan. Most importantly, you see here the workforce component that I spoke to you about, the Christian County Works program. And that's working with all of our K-12 institutions and Ozarks Technical Community College to really focus on that workforce piece. And lastly, as the tourism market does emerge and rebound through COVID and learn to adapt and respond, we do find ourselves in the largest tourism corridor in the state. And so we do have plans to encourage the tourism development and how we can continue to maximize those revenues. Our 5-year target budget, as identified in the feasibility study that went into this plan, is a target budget of $360,000 annually with a $1.8 million budget over the next 5 years. We do have a stretch goal identified by our board of directors of $500,000 per year, which would land us at $2.5 million over the next 5 years. And hopefully you've all been able to review the impact report that was completed by Impact Data Source. These numbers are directly as a result of the jobs and capital investment that we referenced in goal 1 of our plan. And this is the increase in consumer spending in year 6. So again, I just wanted to walk you through that as a refresher. We have made the same ask of Christian County and then also originally of the general fund from the city of Nixa. So that ask is $50,000 from the city of Ozark as an original incorporator in Show Me Christian County. To date, the city of Nixa has locked in their budget and has decided to invest $50,000. The government entity of Christian County has also done the same at $50,000, and that is our request to you. So I'm here to answer any questions that you may have as you weigh the options of investing in the future of this organization and our work for the future of the city of Ozark.
Okay, Alderman, we'll need to be making a decision on this pretty quickly. So now's the chance to ask Ms. Seitz any questions you might have. And Steve, if you've got any comments either, any questions or comments? Okay, go ahead, Steve.
As you know, we're in our budget right now, and we're researching the different opportunities and different funds that we have to better understand how we can, I don't want to say keep up with, but how we can equally commit our dollars to economic development advancement, similar to what our original partners did when we created this, which is Christian County and the city of Nixa. Certainly we need to do what we need to do to be able to produce the best results for the city of Ozark, and we need to determine what that is. But it is budget time, and so we'll be talking to you about that real soon. That's why I wanted Andrea to be able to present tonight and show you the goals and objectives that we have, so that you know there is a clear direction for the organization. And so we just need to determine what that's going to be. So we'll be putting that into our draft budget. Certainly we've got that. We'll be talking about that tomorrow. I know Alderman Post had asked me when we were going to be meeting on that. So you're going to be getting some emails and or phone calls from us this week to start scheduling those for those of you that want to have individual meetings with us on the budget. And that will be one of the topics. So if we can have those meetings, then you can give me some direction on what we need to put into the budget for these types of items, which we anticipate the first reading of the budget will be on the December 7th Board of Alderman meeting. But if you have any questions from a budgetary standpoint for me as well, certainly I'm happy to answer.
Jason.
Steve, can we afford this?
What was that?
Can we afford this?
Isn't this equal to a cop car?
That's one of the things that we're researching. That Christian County and Nixa do it a little differently than we do, and that's just simply because their budgetary funds are set up differently. Can we afford it? I believe we can. Well, we do have to ask ourselves the question. We actually have two partnerships, two agreements with two arms of the economic development component. One is our chamber, and the other is Show Me Christian County. One focuses on one thing, or some things. One focuses on others. One reason why Nixa has a little bit more flexibility, or a lot more flexibility, they have something called an enterprise fund. As a charter city, they have established what's called an enterprise fund, and that enterprise fund is where all their utility fees go. So the utility revenue that they receive goes into an enterprise fund, and that enterprise fund has a bit more flexibility, or as we understand it now, to be able to invest in those economic development pursuits. I would say new businesses or new users that they can draw in. And if those new businesses are able to create large water, sewer, electric customers, users, then obviously that's going to generate a new revenue. And so that's how that's justified. The city of Ozark does not have an enterprise fund, but we are researching whether or not our water and sewer funds can be used for this purpose. Again, let's say you were to bring in, well, let's use one. Let's say you were to bring in an Amazon distribution building like the city of Republic did. And you have a user that has 1 million square feet under roof, and you're able to generate enormous amounts of new user revenue because of that type of user. You're creating jobs, you're doing that. And without the water and sewer infrastructure, you wouldn't be able to locate that building in your town. So there's no doubt that the availability of public infrastructure and economic development go hand in hand. We just want to make sure that if that is something that that's a fund that we can use, we want to be able to offer that to the Board of Aldermen. But our legal department is looking into that right now, but we're not done with that research.
I guess to follow up, Steve, when we've had prior budget discussions, I understood it took millions of dollars of sales tax to generate $50,000. Am I wrong?
Well, I mean, simply, if you have your sales tax is 2.375%. So if you generate $1 million in new retail sales, then that would generate for the city $23,750. I know that's not exactly right, but you get my point.
I guess that's what my point is we would have to see a return on this contract on a yearly basis of over $2.2 million of sales to justify the expense. Am I wrong?
Well, you're not wrong if you were only talking about retail. Again, I think if you look at other businesses, again, the Amazon distribution center example that I used is not retail, but it is going to create over 500 jobs, and it is going to generate enormous new revenues for their utilities that they have to pay for, because they created the shovel-ready sites site-ready sites that allowed for those businesses to come in there. So, that's that economic development game that you have to play, and to get what we call certified sites in the city of Ozark, that's what brings them in. Now, Republic, they're out on I-44. I know we have 65, but it's not an I-44, but they do have certified sites. And that's one of the reasons why these businesses are locating out there, something that we have not been able to achieve yet. So I do think that you give a great example with the return on investment if you measure it from a sales tax standpoint, but there's other measurable units as well.
How about property tax?
Property tax, I think we all know the property tax challenge we're under. The mayor asked me about property tax. As one of the lowest property tax levies, in the region, I guess it would depend on what it was.
Yeah.
I mean, it would generate some property tax, and certainly new commercial business generates far more property tax for the city than does single family residential. So yes, property tax would be a greater benefit from a commercial development than would be from residential. So I guess that's how I would answer that question.
Steve, if I may, I do have numbers on return on investment if you'd like me to share that.
Yes,
I
please
can
do.
share my. Okay.
Please.
Uh, Certainly. So this was a document that I shared in my one-on-one meetings with the alderman. I did prepare this for Christian County, but the lion's share of the work that we have been able to impact over the last 2.5 years directly has landed here in Ozark. So it's very relevant. Since I started as staff in 2018, we have been able to directly impact and assist businesses in bringing $24,238 or $238,720 in capital investment into Christian County. Now, as Mr. Childers noted, that is not all in retail. And looking at the $25,000 that the county invested specifically, their return on investment, looking at the capital return, was $193.91 into the county. Now, Christian or Ozarks is slightly lower than that, but when you look through this list of just these 3 projects, the Creative Audio Headquarters and e-distribution, they have completed phase 1 and are now entering phase 2. Total, that is $5 million in capital investment here into the city of Ozark, and 30 more jobs that they are getting ready to create through that. They are also getting ready to extend in their plans, and I know they're still working with that with Mr. Parsons and Mr. Smith in Planning and Development and Public Works, but extend a significant upgrade to our water system in that area. Then we also have Alpine Aviation, which was a new job that we recruited, a new company that we recruited to Ozark. And again, that was competitive. So we won that over the states of New Jersey and Alabama. That was $238,720 in capital investment because they moved into an existing building. However, with the 39 new jobs that they will be creating, they have an average wage of $64,000, and so we're very grateful for that company. In addition, we've assisted the Cox Health Super Clinics as they've navigated that process, and all of those 3 projects combined are a total of 130 new daytime jobs. But a perfect example of how we can impact and create that return on investment is specifically through the staff time that we're able to provide and assist the city with. So the governor's transportation cost share was one opportunity that we partnered with Mr. Childers and staff on. I know that there are some timeline issues that have been caused because of COVID. However, with that return, it's more in that 1 year than all of the investment combined that has been given from the city of Ozark to Show Me Christian County. So that's just a brief snapshot on the last 2.5 years of how we've been able to walk alongside these businesses. And I'm happy to continue or elaborate on any other questions that you may have.
Mr. Galloway?
Looks like Steve disappeared on me.
Oh, no, he just scooted out of the picture.
I was reading we have a camera in the middle of our streets. I have to go back and forth to read the shared screen there.
It's just kind of funny to watch you zip over to the table.
Sorry.
Steve, what would be a set of metrics that you would recommend for us to evaluate performance here?
Well, I think the last slide that Andrea showed is really what economic development is, and it's what economic development is on this level. Look, I want to remind everybody that the model that we used to create Show Me Christian County was the model that came from the Springfield Business Development Corporation. And you can't just measure what that organization does or this organization does based on this Taco Bell or this McDonald's or this brick and mortar, because you are competing for other things other than sales tax dollars. You're competing for jobs. You're competing for higher daytime populations. You're competing for salaries that will be spent into your community. So all of the time and investment that you put in the efforts to be able to prepare yourself to be able to compete with what I would say on the national level, sometimes on the international level, you have to have those site-ready sites. You have to be able to have those relationships and things. And so it's really the matrix that Andrea showed you on that sheet, when it talks about jobs and capital investment and the reinvestment of the dollar into your community and those types of things. Those are all tangible. Those are all measurable. I think that we've got it in our 5-year plan. And I think that that page right before you asked the question was a good example of real projects here in Ozark that we've been able to create measurable results.
So do we then look at businesses that invest that their entity touched? Is that the metric we go by? Is there more than one metric?
Yes, if I may, in the 5-year action plan, there are key measurements under each goal that's been identified. And you will notice some of those have hard numbers to them that we will be reporting on. But a lot of those also say track or create those programs, realizing that we are really just 2.5 years in. Yes, it's taken us 5 years to get to this point, but from staff and really being able to impact this, a lot of these programs and systems in which to impact these things long term, we have to create them still. And so those are things that we send to Mayor Gardner and our board of directors each month. And I'm happy to start submitting that staff report to the Board of Aldermen if that would help you all understand those day-to-day measurements.
Well, I don't know about looking at it monthly. I think quarterly would be enough if that's, I don't know what other board members feel about it. And then I guess this question is directed to Andrea. What role did Show Me Christian County play in terms of getting, just very briefly, Alpine and Cox and Mercy?
Alpine, Cox, and Creative?
Or, well, let me, what was listed on the slide there on
yes,
return
those were
on
the three. Yeah, those
Yeah.
were the three projects. So I'll just start. The Cox Health for Ozark was minimal. We had a much heavier impact when it came to the Nixa project, and because that was a ground up, and it was really in serving as that concierge. So that was the lightest of the three projects. When it comes to Alpine Aviation, so Alpine was a lead that was actually started with the Nixa Chamber of Commerce, and they were very gracious. We actually started that site visit specifically for that community. And unfortunately, for the city of Nixa, based on the existing building inventory that they had, we did not have a suitable option. So we were on the site visit. We actually had their executives in from New Jersey. And to Mr. Lyles and Mr. Russell's credit, they actually drove us over to the city of Ozark and looked at the building in which they selected. The Missouri Partnership worked with us, and we helped navigate the state incentives that they received and put that together. And had gone every step of the way through that process. We've also helped them identify alternative site locations, but thankfully the new owners of that building have said that they can stay. For the Creative Audio project, we assisted them from location selection when we originally received that lead from both of our larger chambers of commerce here in the county. We met with the owners, walked through the needs and what they were looking for, did an initial site search, and proposed 11 different sites across the county. They selected the site in which they located, then continued to set up meetings with the commercial broker, pre-development meetings with the city, workforce meetings, so on and so forth, and continue to do so at either the request of the business or the city when it's needed.
I may say one other thing. It's, you know, when you work these projects, you have to remember this is Show Me Christian County. So whether it's Ozark, whether it's Nixa, whether it's Christian County, this is a regionalism. That's the whole concept that this was built under, is regionalism, and trying to build ourselves as communities within Christian County and create that image, if you will, that we can compete on a national level. We can compete with cities that have 60, 80, or 100,000 population. We're trying to pull together all the good positive data from our region And although we're a town of 20,000, we use those numbers in that metropolitan statistical area to be able to maximize that sell. So when you go out there and you're trying to get these leads and work these leads, you have to use all those numbers because, again, we are a bedroom community of 20,000 people. Believe me, nobody loves retail more than Steve Childers loves retail. But, you know, I'm the budget guy. But I know that we have a very limited amount of retail opportunities that exist here as a bedroom community because simply that's just the market that we exist in. So we have to step back and look at the bigger picture. And again, do the things that we have shown about daytime population and whatnot, and try to recognize that is something that we're trying to do is complete a full, robust economy in the city of Ozark that functions on many levels so that we can get through all different times of the ups and the downs. And, you know, it's the big picture. And, you know, again, we're all in this together, and we're a partner within this partnership with the other cities. And so when we talk about these businesses, there'll be some that we help with and some that we don't. And the thing that we recognize is the city of Ozark is a regulatory agency. We adopt plans, we create the policies that we need to try to implement those plans, but we can't work the sale. We are not that organization that when a business wants tender love and care, when they want extra attention, when they're making decision between Johnson, Wisconsin, or Ozark, Missouri, and they want somebody to make them feel pretty special, the city of Ozark, that's not what we do. I mean, we can do the best we can, but we don't have the staff, we don't have the time, we don't have the resources to dedicate to that one company to be able to do that. And so the whole idea was we need to create a mechanism, an organization that focuses every day of the year on anybody that needs to have that focus, because that company is looking for a reason to say no and go somewhere else. And so you have to give them that dedicated attention. And as, you know, staff that is running an entire city, we just don't have the resources to just focus on one part of economic development. So we contract with another organization, which is Show Me Christian County, to be able to fulfill that role just as maybe an economic development person would do on your staff. But once again, that economic development person that's on your staff working for Ozark isn't able to capitalize necessarily on all the regionalism that is created through Show Me Christian County. And I'm just trying to provide some background and philosophies about when we began this several years ago to how we are here today, and how economic development really functions in this type of U.S. economy.
One quick follow-up, if I may, Andrew.
Please.
Andrea, with our partners, like Nick said, under their agreement or our agreement, or rather under their agreement, on a lead that comes to them, are they obligated to send it up to you, or do they come to you for an assist, or how does that work?
Sure. So no, there's no obligation, and that's why alignment and relationships are so important, because if that relationship breaks, if a link in the chain gets weakened, then deals can fall apart. And when we look at things in the city of Nixa, for example, every 2 weeks we meet and we go over all projects. And at that meeting, we have the chamber present, Public Works, Planning and Development, the city administrator is there as well. And we have also worked to implement that same type of meeting here in Ozark to go over and pursue those same things. And we just open up the floor to what we're working on. And if if we can share, then we do, and we try to bring everyone around the same table. They know in the city of Nixa, just like our partners here in Ozark know, yes, I do work for the whole county, but that never means that I'm going to betray a lead, so to speak, and pull it to one community or another. So just in the same right, if there was a lead that started here in Ozark and they said, oh, we want to be in Ozark, I will work that as if I am part of the city of Ozark staff, and have really worked to build the trust with all of the department heads. My job is not to come in and deliver or to promise something that's not able to be delivered on. What I do is go in and communicate up front. There was actually a perfect example. Someone wanted to open a wedding venue, and they wanted to come in and they thought they were ready to pull permits. And thankfully, Mr. Smith said, that's great. We have an economic development organization. You might reach out. And so he also sent that information to me, in which I was able to be proactive and reach out to them first. And that's definitely something that is a plus about our relationships. So I was able to reach out to that business and go through the list and say, that's phenomenal that you want to do that idea. And thank you for wanting to invest in this community and in this area. Do you have your business plan? Have you secured your funding yet? Have you done your market? And those are the kinds of things that we can vet on the front side and really help save time on city staff. And as Mr. Childers noted, that's one of and really the biggest benefit of this organization. We were created to fill a gap. I can speak to that from personal experience. When I served in my previous role, it was always the goal to focus on these things, but I didn't necessarily have the time nor the resources to do them effectively. And I think that's one of the things that I enjoy so much about this position, is it allows me to continue the work that was started nearly 5 years ago.
Okay, so just to be clear, Ozark Chamber gets a lead, they refer it to you, and they say, really, we need you to help work it for us, this lead. That would mean you would be working as if you were on Ozark's quote unquote team. And you would do the same for Nixa and your other partners.
Yes. Yeah. They'll provide at each level, they'll provide, basic and community specific demographics, and might give them a community guide, the warm welcome there. And then from that interaction on, most of the time it's different in each community, but most of the time they say, we've got our economic development organization and we know that you're going to be in good hands.
Bruce, let me make a comment there, and then Mr. Poston. I think it's fair to say that a lead could initially come to one city or the other, and that Andrea would tend to work it for that. But in the process of doing that, it's also quite likely to determine that that lead is best, or what they're looking for is not going to be found in the place that first received the lead. And it's her job to make sure that if she can direct it to that city, that's fine. But to benefit Christian County overall is certainly going to be a benefit to Ozark, because businesses that are here will still have people that shop in Nixa and vice versa. And she has to look at it that way. It can't just be, if it doesn't go to Ozark, or if it's not suitable in Ozark, that she drops it, because she's obligated to try to find a place for that somewhere. Mr. Poston, you had your hand up.
Yes, sir. I had a couple things. Since this is just kind of a informational discussion, I see two separate issues I wanted to talk about. One was just the budget itself. Since the budget's coming up and we're not dealing with a specific contract here, we're just talking about a budget item, a bucket basically. Steve, I am assuming that we'll do what we've always done. We will come up with a number that we're happy for economic development. That'll be put in that bucket, and we'll deal with contracts as they come down the road. And there'll be a pool to choose from for economic development money. My one concern with it is, and this will parlay into my next point in a minute, which is, I was uncomfortable when that number went from 25 to 35 years ago, and now that we've kind of, on one hand, we're taking economic development more seriously, which I greatly appreciate, but we're also approaching a threefold increase in economic development budget in a 5-year period. That's not sustainable. My second point, and this is, again, I just wanted to point this out, but this is something I'm assuming we'll deal with when we get into the specific contract down the road, and that's scope creep. When we did Show Me Christian County, I kind of envisioned that as them being our little ninjas that would just run around and find businesses. And as soon as they landed a business in Christian County, we're going to hit it again. We're going to find another business, and just on and on and on, just grabbing them one by one, plucking them from these other communities, and let's bring them to Christian County. And now we're looking at, recreating job boards and a lot of things that go beyond business attraction. Great things, don't mean to imply that they're not, but I feel like we're getting into an area of, well, what we call in my field scope creep anyway. And there may be some overlapping opportunities that are being missed. That's what I had.
Would you explain to those of us who don't know what scope creep is, what scope creep is?
Sorry, scope creep, meaning that, this organization, which again, I was under the impression was originally about business attraction and retention. Go get a business and bring it here. Now has a job board for Christian County, is working on, emergency plans with businesses and continuity plans with businesses. Again, that's all great things. No issues with any of those items, but under the umbrella of an organization that was founded to go attract businesses, now branching out into other areas. Is this the right place for this? Is there other synergies? That's what not we need to discuss all this right now. I'm throwing that out as a topic that I would like to have, that I'd like to go deeper into before we get into a specific contract down the road.
Okay, I understand what you mean now by scope creep. Okay, but I think that, in my opinion, the appearance of them doing that came as a result of the pandemic and the need to alter their plans and be a little more resilient. During the pandemic, I can't imagine there were a lot of people wanting to relocate. Now, I see Ms. Seitz raise her hand, so would you please? Before
she would, I'm going to ask one more question, and I'll let Ms. Seitz respond to that as well. The one other thing that I think that Show Me Christian County can be immensely helpful on in the future is remote workers, telecommuting workers. We continually talk about businesses, and I understand why, but we have to start shifting our thinking to a new economy. This isn't just about COVID. COVID accelerated what was already happening, but Steve, you and I have had these conversations for going on 5 years now about attracting workers that have the ability to work anywhere in the world, and they can work for Apple and IBM and these companies located in large cities that pay significant salaries, significantly higher than the average around here, and yet they can work and live, or they can live and work here from their home. That is the fastest growing segment of our workforce, and it's largely forgotten, even though I think everybody I'm looking at here, for the most part, works from home, with the exception of Miss Alderman, or at least works from home part-time. And we're kind of leaving that out of our plans. And at some point, some organization has to focus on that if we're going to really stay competitive and not, kind of just copycat the policies of others. We don't want to do that, right? We can think better than that. We can think bigger than that.
Ms. Seitz?
Sure. No, great questions, and I'm happy to address all three of those. I think the best way to start would actually be by looking at the shift in economic development industry as a whole. And the slide that I'm showing you now is actually a graphic from 80 Advantage. Mr. Poston, if you'll recall, Janet 80 was the site consultant that did the competitive assessment for the city of Ozark in 2016. And so in this, she described in one of her talks and discussions the traditional model of economic development was smokestack chasing. It's what we see here on the left, this focus on business attraction, sometimes business retention and expansion or startups, but it was largely attraction. And what that left a lot of communities doing was spending a lot of money and not getting a solid return on investment. And statistically speaking, the majority of new jobs that are created, depending on where you're located, that's anywhere from 75 to 90% of new jobs that are created actually come from those businesses that are already in existence. And so to that, I would say to you, you're not wrong. When this organization was founded, and I think Mr. Childers would speak to this as well, we didn't know what we didn't know. We just knew that we weren't focusing on economic development. We didn't really know what that looked like or how it would be implemented practically in the city of Ozark or all across Christian County. And that's why as we got deeper, you'll see the graphic on the right that shows kind of the new three legs of the stool, or what holistic economic development looks at. You have absolutely the focus on the attracting of new businesses, because we are very imbalanced here in Christian County. And that's a result because we didn't start focusing on these efforts 15 or 20 years ago. But you'll also see, of course, the talent development aspect, recruiting workers and workforce, because, and the placemaking in the, if I can get my slides to work with all of this going on the left, it used to be where the companies would land and the companies would decide where they wanted to locate based on potential site or tax incentives or labor availability, with the mentality that if we build it, they will come. And now, as you'll see on the right, it's completely shifted because our labor markets are so tight, even emerging from COVID. Yes, we have a higher unemployment rate across the state of Missouri and in this area than we've seen in a while, but we are still less than 5% unemployment. So when it comes to a tight labor market, people go where there are cool things to do, for lack of a better term, and that's where this placemaking effort comes into play. Things like, our school districts, not a lot of traffic congestion, low crime rates, trails, recreational amenities, those kinds of things. And the companies now follow where the people are. So that's why we must focus on the workforce development aspect and our quality of place, because the businesses are now going and following the people. So that's one aspect and area to address your second point that you raised about the scope creep, and how there are different things and how this is different than we had originally planned 5 years ago. For remote workers, that'll actually go back to the action plan, and it is in fact in the plan. If I need to change the verbiage or update it in the contract, I'm happy to do so. It's hard to fit 5 years into 3 pages. But you'll see under the target industry list that we have home-based businesses, and that includes remote and telework capabilities. So those are things that we have discussed on a board level, and hopefully Mayor Gardner can speak to as much. Identifying and establishing relationships with utility partners, specifically in broadband. And that is a priority not just for Christian County, but all across the state. And thankfully, the largest recipient of the USDA broadband grant is actually a Christian County-based business at Total High Speed. And through their recent grant of $50 million, they will be building out and laying over 1,000 miles of fiber. A large portion of that is in rural areas of Christian County, including in Ozark. So we're definitely focusing and keeping our eye on remote and telework. For us, I feel like that is the easiest way to move the needle, because we do have all of these executives that now through COVID have found that they can work from home, that they can in fact work anywhere. And we have a very safe place, and we have a lot to offer. And it's just a great location, as you mentioned. So lastly, what I wanted to tie to is your note about not being sustainable. So I wanted to identify that and demonstrate, hang on, I'm not quite ready to share that. Let me make sure I can get this slide pulled up. And demonstrate the difference between doing it internally as far as hiring staff and why this request continues to increase. So, as you'll recall, the original contract that I'm assuming you're referencing, the 25,000, that's what the chamber contract was when I came to the city of Ozark. And then we did increase that in 2016, I believe it was, to go to 30,000 per year annually. And then now this request for Show Me Christian County at 50. Slide that you're looking at is the average salary for an economic development professional, and this is a salary survey from the International Economic Development Council. Then on the right of this chart, it has the Midwest region, which we fall under, and that's the average salary per year for a certified economic developer. So just to let you know what you're getting when you contract with Show Me Christian County, we have a staff of 2, first of all, and we have active plans to expand that within the next year. And in addition, our board has really invested on the knowledge base for this organization. So I have become a certified economic development finance professional. In addition, I am 2 courses away from completing Oklahoma University's Economic Development Institute, and will be pursuing my designation as a certified economic developer as well. So just in year 1, if you take that scale from 80,000 and then continue that up, that's based on a 3% salary increase year over year. Now, I will tell you, we made this presentation to the city of Nixa before COVID hit, and our original request to them was 75,000. So based on that 75,000, that was an average savings year over year of $49,258 and a savings of $150,000 based on this higher scale. So what we are requesting from you, again, is 50,000 per year, still significantly under what you would be paying average salary for an economic development professional. And now you're getting an entire organization. So I hope that speaks to the level and why that continues to increase. Because our work increases and it is a great cost savings and value. That slide is just salary alone and does not factor in the benefits that you would also be required to provide for that employee. So I hope that helps speak to the 3 questions that you raised. And I think they're great questions. Happy to answer any more.
Right, any more questions of Ms. Seitz? If there are, we need to deal with them tonight before we bring the budget proposal to you. So now's the chance. Any questions or concerns? Okay, Mr. Poston.
Well, I've got one more, and I'll just be preemptive here. I don't know, Steve, we haven't seen the budget. I have no idea what your starting point is. But if we're just talking about an economic development bucket and where I think we are between the chamber and Show Me, I think you're probably looking at close to 90, and man, I don't know if I'm there.
I think it depends on what we find out through our legal department, whether or not we can utilize the utility funds for those purposes. I really don't know. Clearly, look, it's all fund dependent. The general fund is always the most stressed fund we have because it pays for public safety and streets. And it takes up about 90% of the budget. And so, that's a difficult thing. So economic development, and it's something that we need, it's something that we want. I think Alderman Schaefer said, can we afford it? I think you got to ask yourself, can you not afford it? It depends on what what you feel like the deliverable is. I think, going back to Alderman Poston's, maybe one of his comments, and then I'll be done. It's up to you guys. You got to decide that. Like you said, I'll show you where we can find this or where we can find that, and it'll depend on some information that I'm going to get soon. But when we look at the organization, Show Me Christian County, that again, I remember being a part of, implementing it in the whole philosophy of regionalism and trying to find a way to make ourselves bigger and really attract those people that can work from anywhere. We have to, as Ozark, if we are going to do better, if we are going to think bigger, then hopefully we will continue our conversations that we've been having about what we really want to look like, because the way that we have grown over the last 20 years is not sustainable. If we continue to think that the people that are the brightest, that can work from anywhere, that are working from Google, all have 2.7 children in their household and want a $500,000 big yard to mow and a big house. That is not the trend. We have to build the right housing. We have to create the sense of place. We have to leave open space. We can't have every square inch of our town be a rooftop, because that is not attractive to people. You will lose the character that you fought so hard for so many years to keep if Ozark doesn't look the way it is, if it's nothing but a sea of homes, because that is not what's attracting those people that can work from home. I mean, you can read any article anywhere, and all the most recent, topics of this nature, and the single family large lot house situation is not what's driving those people. It's driving a lot of retirees. It's driving a lot of grandparents who want to be close to their grandchildren to the Ozarks. But as far as attracting that 20-something to that 25 to 35-year-old who literally can work anywhere and are looking for a cool place to live, we haven't reached cool yet. And so, again, we have to decide what we want to be and what that is. And if we can create that sense of place, there is where your economic development is. You can't bring those people here if you don't give them the place that they want to live. And so, I think those things go hand in hand. So when we talk about $10,000, $20,000, $25,000, you're talking about some enormous conceptual changes in the way Ozark's done business for 25 years and comparing it to $25,000. I don't know if that big picture can be supported by such a small amount. And I wouldn't want to split hairs in order to not be able to achieve what we need to achieve with the long game.
Small amounts add up, though. I mean, I think, and I don't want to reach too far back here, but Mr. Parsons had a project several months ago with the road mapping. He had an ROI on that project. I 100% accepted his ROI, but just sometimes because something has an ROI, we just don't have the money. Roads have ROIs too, but if we can't afford to pave them, we can't afford to pave them. So I don't disagree with anything that's said. And by the way, I feel like now I'm becoming this anti-economic development. I see Andrea grin over there. That's not the point. That's not what I'm at with this at all. I'm simply saying that we have seen scope creep on this. We've seen cost creep on this. And if all those things are going to happen, have we sat down and had the conversations with all the economic development players to try to find an alignment and potential cost savings in there before we bring back multiple plans? Are we sure that these plans are aligned? I'll tell you that, and I know this isn't much of an item, but the Christian County work, some of this I really like, but of the 4 items, 2 of them are about a job board. Monster and Indeed exist. I don't need to recreate those. It's that type of thing that I'm talking about. So again, if you're asking, I just want to understand where we're kind of at tonight. I've just assumed that this was a conversation. We would talk about budgets later. It's my intention that you're going to ask for a bucket of economic development funds in the budget, and we're certainly going to do that. Don't know what that number is. If you're asking for approval of $50K for this as a contract tonight, I think that's a different animal.
I'm not asking for anything. You are all the legislature. You are the legislators. I assume that you will find whatever money you need to forward your legislative priorities. You will determine what those legislative priorities are, and then you will determine whether you have enough money or not. I'm just simply allowing for our organizations to bring to you the information that they want to share. And so you're right. If there's a bucket of money and the Board of Aldermen says, we're only going to put $50,000 in an entire bucket of money, figure out where it goes, or we're going to put $100,000 in that bucket, figure out where it goes. And oh, by the way, here's where we want it to go. I'm going to manage the budget to whatever legislative priority you set as number 1, number 2, and number 3. That's what the budget manager does. And so now you have the information, you have the data, you have access to the research, whatever you want to have. Wherever you feel comfortable is where you're going to land. So there will be a draft budget, a proposed budget, and you can increase or decrease those line items however you feel comfortable in doing so. So we just want to bring you the information so that you're comfortable when you're looking at the budget and asking, can we raise this and lower this, or can we lower this and raise this?
And we anticipate that being done the first meeting in December. Is that correct?
The entire budget, we hope to be meeting with all of you about this and having these discussions one-on-one as in-depth as you want it to be. And then having that on the schedule for December 7th for a first reading.
All right, any further questions or comments? Okay, I see Ms. Seitz. Oh, there she is. You've moved places on the screen. Okay, any further comments from you? Are we done or anything else?
Just that I'm always available for questions. So if this sparks something, I'm happy to follow up with each one of you or answer any additional questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you, ma'am, very much. All right, we will go on to the next agenda item, which is first reading bills. Mr. Galloway.
Your Honor, I move we place bill number 3199 on its first reading by title only.
Motion made by Galloway, seconded by Smith to put bill 3199 on its first reading. All in favor? All right, Ms. Galloway.
An ordinance of the City of Ozark, Missouri, authorizing the city to enter into a contract with DNS Equipment LLC for wastewater treatment chemicals.
Okay, Mr. Parson, are you wanting to speak to that? Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. This contract you've seen a few times over the past several years. This is some housekeeping. This is the chemicals that we utilize in the treatment process to condition the wastewater or treat the wastewater to a point where we can turn it into sludge and then land apply it. So again, this is just some general housekeeping. DNS is a reputable company that we've worked with in the past, and we would like to work with them again.
All right, any questions from council? Samantha, there aren't any people in the other room, are there? Okay, it's a public, open for public discussion, but there's no public here. So any further questions or comments from any of the board? All right, Mr. Parsons, can this wait till the next meeting or does this need to be expedited?
This can wait, sir.
All right, then we will hold 3199 over till December the 7th. Okay, Mr. Schaefer, bill 3200. You're muted, Mr. Schaefer.
I would ask that bill 3200 be read by brief title and description only.
All right, do I hear a second? Motion made by Alderman Schaefer, seconded by Alderman Poston to put bill 3200 on its first reading. All in favor? Ms. Callaway.
An ordinance of the Board of Aldermen of the City of Ozark, Missouri, removing the delegation of authority to the mayor issued in Ordinance 2017.
Okay, would you take the staff comments on that, please, Ms. Callaway?
Yes. This ordinance proposes to remove the delegation of authority that was given to the mayor pursuant to Ordinance 2017. That delegation of authority gave the mayor the ability to utilize the state statutes related to issuing orders for a situation such as a pandemic. This ordinance does not amend or withdraw any present orders, and it does not change the declaration of emergency. It only removes that delegation of authority for future orders by the mayor. It should be noted that this ordinance, it was drafted by my office at the request of Alderman Schaefer, but I did advise Alderman Schaefer that it's still inconsistent with the legal advice of my office. And that's just based on the fact that if there was a need to take action related to the pandemic, it would require a quorum of the Board of Aldermen. And if anything were to jeopardize the quorum and you could not achieve a quorum, then there would be no ability to take action, and that could jeopardize the health of the community. And that's the only reason for that legal advice, and it should be noted. But I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, Mr. Poston? Well, Mr. Schaefer should go first. It's his bill. I'm sorry. Then Mr. Poston.
That's right.
I'm sorry, Jason.
We should remember that when this came to us in March, we were facing a lot of unknowns. We had not had Zoom conferences before. We were under a lockdown for the whole community. There wasn't in the foreseeable future an opportunity for the Board of Aldermen to meet. It was my understanding that in circumstances like that, the mayor would step forward and do the business of the city, which I certainly was in agreement on. Now, 7 months down the road, 8 months down the road, we do know that we can function as a city. We do know that no member of this board has missed any significant time because of COVID. We know that through Zoom, not only can we meet, but we can meet with the public, and we can argue, and we can disagree, and we can vote, and the business of the city moves on. And the pandemic now is as strong as it's ever been, number-wise, sickness-wise. And I'm just saying that I do not like the fact that this board has given away its authority and its ability, and we do have a duty to the citizens, and sometimes it's a hard job, but it's up to this board to make certain decisions for this community. And by delegating it to the mayor, it takes it out of our hands. Now, when we made the decision in March, it was a different circumstance, and now those circumstances have changed. And I think it's time that the board take the authority back. Now, this is not a slight at the mayor, and I'm not being disingenuous to say that his mask order didn't prompt this resolution. I'm not going to say that. I supported the mayor in that order, and I told him as much. And he reached out to each one of us, and I appreciated that. And we all gave his input, and I think we've all supported him with what the decision he made. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that's really our decision to make, and those future decisions should be ours. And I don't see the circumstances existing requiring the delegation because of Zoom conferencing, because the fact that the board hasn't missed any time, and because currently we're functioning, the city, the board, even in the height of the pandemic. I'm just asking the members of the board to step forward and assume that responsibility that we delegated back to the mayor. I guess retake the responsibility that we delegated to the mayor and vote tonight to do that and to serve as a board for the community. And that's why I presented it.
Okay, Mr. Poston.
Yeah, sure. So, Your Honor, my question would be for Mr. Schaefer, if you would.
Sure.
Why, in a situation, I'm assuming, and I'm going to have to make some assumptions here. I'm assuming we're all accepting that the declaration of emergency would stay in place.
That's right.
If we accept that we are in some sort of state of emergency, why would I not want the mayor to have that authority when the board still has the authority? This mask ordinance, for example, if we had a problem with that, we could simply pass an ordinance to repeal it. If we felt that the mayor, went rogue and was no longer representing the people, it shouldn't be hard under those circumstances to get 3 or 4 aldermen to come together and repeal or change an ordinance that the mayor enacted. So because we are in a state of emergency, why not continue to give the mayor that authority with the board the authority to undo it? Whereas, in normal times we operate the flip of that, but in a state of emergency on those issues, why not do it this way?
And that's a good question. My statement would be, it does change the structure of the political structure. I mean, the way this has been set up is for the Board of Aldermen, 2 from each ward, to represent the individuals, okay? Because there's a state of emergency, delegating it to the mayor for the sole purpose of him using it in situations where we're not available, but that situation doesn't exist. And in the circumstance of the mask ordinance, he used it when we had actually ruled on that, and there was a lot of community involvement, and we ruled against it. And then shortly thereafter, it was put into place. Now, I grant you that, yeah, I could have presented a motion to try to withdraw that mask order. What I'd rather do is just have the board do its job and render those decisions, because we can do it. We can do it in a timely fashion and also give the community an opportunity to be heard on those orders. I don't think any community wants a mayor, even in emergency situations, to making the decisions over the board unless the board's incapable of making those decisions or doesn't have the proper time frame to make those decisions. And I think in these type of circumstances, I think the board can meet, argue, and present a vote in a timely fashion to meet the needs of the city and still keep to that political structure that the community is used to. You know, some people didn't object because of the decision, but the fact that it was done without the board, or in fact, it was done contrary to what the board already ruled on. And what I'm trying to do is remove that element. I'm not saying that we wouldn't still have voted for the mask ordinance. I'm saying we didn't have the opportunity to vote for the mask ordinance. I'm not saying that when the mayor was presented with that information, that we, when presented the same information, one of us wouldn't have changed our vote, because as we all know, it was very close in the first time. All I know is the board was completely bypassed. And that's the type of decision I would think we as aldermen would want to be involved in and in making. I don't think we should have to try to fix things after it's done, but rather be in the forefront and make those decisions in the first place. It's really, I don't have a problem with what the mayor did, and I've said that. I think he made the right decision, and I think the board, when presented the facts, one of us would have voted that way.
Are you arguing that in this circumstance, this authority ought to be repealed, or that there are, I guess what I'm getting at is we still don't know what we don't know. It would still be possible for there to be an even worse outbreak at one of our local nursing homes, and the mayor just has to make a decision that can't wait 2 days. It's possible. We don't know that. So are you saying that in those emergency circumstances, should we cede authority to the mayor, or specifically in this current pandemic, we should not cede authority to the mayor?
I'm saying in the current pandemic, I think we've demonstrated that the board can be timely, convened, review the information, and make an educated decision, much like the mayor can. I'm not sure why there's 6 of us and somehow that prohibits us or restricts us because there's only one mayor and 6 of us.
Thanks.
Let me make a comment here. I have no problem with Mr. Schaefer or his desire to change this. I tend to agree with Ms. Callaway, but you made one comment, Mr. Schaefer, that I would like to clarify. You used the term completely bypassed in this last decision. I don't think you meant that, because that wasn't.
I didn't mean that the way it came out. You're right, Mayor.
Because I know what the ordinance or the emergency order, how it reads, and it puts a clear responsibility on the mayor to confer with all of the aldermen and city staff.
What I meant to say was that the public interpreted it as a bypass. What I mean is sure the community as a whole.
I'm sure they did. Yeah. I got lots of calls that they did.
Yeah. But no, we were all involved. Yeah, I give you that. And I think you took a head count. I think you had the support you needed.
Well, it was 5-1.
Yeah.
It was clearly a majority. And although it wasn't a vote, it was as Ms. Alder called it, I got blessings or a consensus approval, whatever term you want to put. It wasn't a formal vote.
No.
But all 6 of you were spoken with, as well as Mr. Childers, and that was the decision that was made. So completely bypassed is not right, but I agree that the public probably thought that.
Yes.
And that was probably the newspaper's fault as much as anything. Or let me really put that where it goes. It goes to Facebook, which we know how terribly credible they are. Mm. All right. Any other comments from the board? Mr. Galloway.
I had a question for Amanda. Well, there's 2. One, I guess I heard something that I wanted to explore. Under the present orders, the Board of Aldermen would have the ability to vote and overturn an ordinance made by the mayor under the emergency powers we granted. I'm asking.
Yes, the Board of Aldermen could enact an ordinance that would be of equal value to the ordinance that gives the mayor authority to issue the orders. So in that situation, if there was something the board disagreed with, they could override that or undo it by issuing an ordinance doing so.
And then my follow-up question, what about Mr. or Alderman Schaefer's point that really we as a board are able to manage our affairs using Zoom and so on, rendering the emergency delegation unnecessary? What do you think of that?
My analysis of that statement or that argument posed in relation to this ordinance would be that we are very fortunate in our community that we have not had some of the impacts that we've seen in other communities related to the pandemic and this disease. And if things were to get worse and our aldermen suffered some sort of onset of the disease itself, or were unable to reach a quorum, which would be 4 aldermen, they could not take any action. And in that situation, it would expose the community to a risk of not being able to take action that could lessen the burden of the pandemic. So by vesting that authority in one person, and then if the mayor isn't able to act, it would also transfer to the mayor pro tem, but it allows that legislative act to be made to respond to that emergency situation. And it is required in that delegation of authority that they reach out and base whatever order they are issuing based on the local or state health officials and other community officials' guidance. So it does have some regulation in that regard.
I have a question for the city administrator.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Bruce.
Of the communities that surround Springfield, Rogersville, well, I don't want to exclude different communities, but those about our size, Rogersville, Republic, Nixa, and Willard maybe, what have they done with what have those boards done with their powers? Have they delegated? Have they withdrawn delegation?
I think the majority of the cities that we talked to before we even put this in place still have the same orders of state of emergency that they put in place back in March or April. I'm not aware that Willard or Rogersville or Nixa, even Republic, who has not mandated a mask order, I still think they exist underneath the emergency order. Now, I don't want to say that every city's order is exactly the same as Ozark's. As Ms. Calloway will tell you, there can be a slight difference in every one of these orders that may or may not change the exact power that the mayor may have. But for the most part, I think the state of emergencies order still exists from what I know.
Thank you.
Let me make another comment here. And I don't want this to sound defensive on my part, because it's not that big a deal to me if that's what you all want to have. But I think Mr. Schaefer's biggest point about removing this is how easy it would be to convene the council on a Zoom call to make a quick decision. Well, a pandemic is one thing, but a tornado or some other sort of natural disaster where lines of communications are destroyed and there's no Wi-Fi, there's no internet, that would remove that. So I just would want you to think about that. Certainly, I hope that doesn't ever happen to Ozark, but it's a possibility. And so just consider that in your decision-making. Any other questions or comments? Ms. Alder, please.
Okay, so just to help me understand exactly what this is if this was passed, then the mayor never has the opportunity to declare an emergency and make a mayoral decision without the Board of Aldermen. Is that correct?
If this ordinance is passed, the mayor no longer has the authority to issue the orders that he has issued, similar to the past orders related to the pandemic that address the social behaviors to try to limit the spread of COVID, which would include the quarantine orders and then the masking order. So those types of orders would no longer be able to be made by the mayor, and it would be an action of the Board of Aldermen through an ordinance.
Thank you. So I understand that with COVID, but does that apply to any other emergency? Or is it, are we just talking about the COVID situation? Or does it?
Right now, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Presently, and the way that this was delegated, it was to address the COVID pandemic, and it was pursuant to the state statutes to address the infectious disease spread and a quarantine type situation. So it doesn't give him exclusive authority to issue orders outside of that realm.
So the situation that that Rick was talking about, a tornado, he still has the authority to take action during a catastrophe of that sort, or no?
No, I believe if I can address that point, I think what he was trying to state was if we are still in the situation that we find ourselves in with the pandemic, and then we have another natural disaster, which some of our neighboring communities have had happen during the pandemic, and we lose this capability to hold these meetings through the internet and with Zoom, then it would require an in-person meeting of the Board of Aldermen who may themselves be impacted by COVID or impacted by the disaster that's occurred in our area. And then you would have a significant issue with trying to achieve an ordinance to address the pandemic.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Mr. Schaefer, you're nodding your head. I don't know if you're wanting to speak or if you're just nodding.
No, Your Honor, I'm fine. I think I've spoken my piece. I think,
Okay.
I just want the board to make these decisions regarding the pandemic, and I don't think it's unreasonable to do that. I think we have the ability to do it, and I think we can prove it. And I'm not aware of any other community in Southwest Missouri that's lost a quorum, of aldermen. And again, I appreciate what you did stepping up and doing the mask ordinance. I know that was a difficult decision, but I don't want the board to make those decisions. I think the community wants the board to make those decisions. And I don't think the board has a problem making those decisions. So I'm just, because we're going to have more decisions coming in the future, especially as this pandemic gets, it might get worse. And I'd just like for the board to be in the forefront, not the mayor.
Okay. Any other comments by Alderman? All right, it's your bill, Mr. Schaefer. Where do we go from here?
I'm muted. I'm sorry. I think it's pretty straightforward. I'd like to try to expedite it. I don't know why we'd want to drag this out 2 more weeks. We got a second with Bruce, so I would move to expedite to have this voted on tonight.
Bruce, was that a second or was that a raise your hand to talk?
No, I'm sorry, that's the second, or B for victory, I can't remember.
Okay, well.
Amanda was wanting to say something.
I'm sorry, who?
Amanda was wanting to say something.
Amanda, I'm trying to look at everybody at once, but before we vote, we do have a motion that's made. Go ahead, Amanda.
I just wanted to ensure there wasn't anyone on the Zoom or in person that wanted to speak to it since it is on first reading and getting ready to go to a second reading.
Okay, I have asked Samantha already, and she says there's no one else here. So I guess I can ask that officially. Is there anyone else outside of the alderman that would like to speak to this? Okay, knowing that there's no one here, that would be a no. Okay, Mr. Schaefer has made the motion to put this on its second reading, and that has been seconded by Alderman Galloway. So all in favor? All right, Ms. Galloway.
An ordinance of the Board of Aldermen of the City of Ozark, Missouri, removing the delegation of authority to the mayor issued in Ordinance 2017.
Okay, Mr. Schaefer.
Aye.
No, you want to,
Discussion?
no. She has read it. You need to move to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
adopt it.
I'd like to move to adopt this. I don't know the ordinance number offhand. Is it, May?
It is 20076.
I would move to adopt bill number 3200 as ordinance 20-076.
I just wanted to raise a point of order. I think we've lost the opportunity to discuss the bill. I had held on to my remarks until after the public hearing was over.
Okay, I beg your pardon. If I did that in error, Ms. Callaway, please correct me. I asked for any other comments, and I meant for anybody, but I did not open it for just Alderman discussion. So was I in error there? Do we need to go
Yes.
back before I'm sorry, what?
I'm sorry. Yes, generally the Board of Aldermen will hold their comment portion during the discussion of the second reading.
Okay, that is a good point, Mr. Galloway. We do have a motion and a second, but before we vote, this may be unconventional, but we will open it up for Alderman discussion for things for the second reading. So Mr. Galloway, go ahead.
I take this motion seriously. I mean, I feel strongly that the board should look out for its prerogatives, not just for this session of board members, but in the future. The reason why I oppose removing the authority at this time are twofold. One, the citizens have not lost their voice. We have, as a board, the ability to overturn any ordinance that the mayor presents. And so if we were in a situation where the mayor did something that we as a board thought was inappropriate, it wouldn't be a personal thing. We would just simply vote. We would actually put it on the agenda, or have the mayor put it on the agenda, and we would vote and we would overturn it. So it's not as stark as saying we've given the mayor the king's power. The second is it's hard to foresee everything in an emergency. And sometimes in an emergency, we have to act quickly and more quickly than we can convene and have a first reading and a second reading. It's hard to anticipate what other issues might happen, but what we could lose if we eliminate this power right now is nimbleness. I'll point out that we do seem to know quite a bit more about the disease. That's true, but also we know that in the fall, late fall and winter, it's predicted, and it has been happening, that the infection rates are burgeoning. And what remains to be seen is the impact on our regional hospitals. It's actually a closer call for me in my opposition than you might imagine. But at this point, I would be uncomfortable releasing this decision, given that, I go back to my first point, that we can overturn anything that we disagree with, and we can do that as soon as the next meeting. And the fact that we're able to have Zoom meetings kind of reinforces that point. We can meet quickly if that happens. But at the same time, rule in an emergency by a board is not the most nimble way to handle it. And so I'm uncomfortable with the ordinance, but maybe not at some other time. That's my 2 cents.
Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to say I want to thank Mr. Schaefer for bringing this forward. I want to tell you also, in all seriousness, that your argument is very, very solid and sound. It is very, very solid and sound. It was a really good argument. I'm going to tell you before we do it, there's one reason and one reason only that I'm in the same camp as Mr. Galloway, and unfortunately has really very little to do with the city. But it's my 21 years in the military. As long as we're in an emergency, I have to have someone in charge. And that doesn't mean that we can't still do what Mr. Galloway said. But if we're in a state of emergency, now we could argue at some point how long the state of emergency should last and everything else. I would concur with all that. But if we're in a state of emergency, I have to have one person that can make decisions really fast. And that's just coming from my military background. So not against your argument. Your argument, great. I loved it. I mean, I really did. But only from that background is where I'm coming from.
All right, any other comments from the board? Ms. Alder?
I feel uncomfortable taking this authority away from the mayor. I don't feel comfortable with it at all. I understand, and I have comments from my constituents about, well, we voted, against that, and then it was changed. But like Ted said, I feel comfortable somebody taking charge when there's a problem looming. And so anyway, I agree with Bruce. So I would vote no on this one. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, if there are no other comments from the board, the motion has been made by Alderman Schaefer and seconded by Alderman Galloway to adopt Bill 3200 as ordinance 20076. So we're ready for a roll call vote.
Alderman Flores?
Nay.
Was that nay? Nay. Thank you.
Yeah, nay.
Alderman Schaefer?
Aye.
Alderman Smith?
Nay.
Alderman Galloway?
Nay. I'm not sure that I seconded this, but nay.
Alderman Alder?
Nay.
Alderman Poston?
Nay.
We have 5 nay votes, 1 aye vote. Motion fails.
Mr. Galloway, to answer your question, I thought I saw the V, and I may have misunderstood that, but it was after Mr. Schaefer's motion to adopt it. So
I think the expedite, Bruce seconded the expedite, I think.
all
Maybe
right,
I didn't have a second.
let's make sure we get this right. Ms. Hodges, was there a second to adopt this bill, or did I make a mistake there?
I thought it was Bruce as well as you.
Okay,
I may have
but he is shaking his head. Let's just start with Mr. Schaefer's original. I don't want there to be any question here, and certainly, but not by my direction. So Mr. Schaefer made a motion to adopt Bill 3200 as ordinance 20076. Is there a second to that motion? Okay, Mr. Poston seconded. All in favor of, oh, no, wait a minute.
No, you don't do that.
To adopt, all right. Okay, motion made by Schaefer, seconded by Alderman Poston to adopt Bill 3200 as 20076. Roll call vote again, carefully.
Same order.
I don't think
I
you
don't
need
care
to
what-
redo the vote. I'm sorry. I don't believe you need to redo the vote. I think you've clarified that it received a second and you can move forward unless there's an objection by one of the board members through a point of order, but they would need to make that now.
All right, are there any objections to moving forward with the previous vote? Okay, hearing none, then we will consider that ordinance 3200 failed. Okay, Mr. Galloway, resolution 1951.
Yes, I move that we, pardon me. Sorry. I move that we read resolution number 1951.
Right. Is there a second? Motion made by Galloway, seconded by Smith to read resolution 1951. All in favor? Ms. Galloway.
A resolution by the Board of Aldermen of the City of Ozark, Missouri, adopting the Christian County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan.
You gonna take that? Okay. All right, Mr. Childers.
You may recognize this from years past, but the hazard mitigation plan is an important tool that we have combined with SIMCOG, the Southwest Missouri Council of Governments, to put together for all of us. Each county can have their own hazard mitigation plan. That is fine, but or each city within each county. But what we're doing is we're doing it multi-jurisdictionally because it simply makes more sense to have a extremely large document like you were had access to in the link that was provided within the packet. Would just makes no sense for every city when each city is very similar in what we would need to do. So we are putting this together because what this does is that it enables us to be able to have access to federal funds. If you do not have a hazard mitigation plan to explain what you would do under certain circumstances of emergency, then they are at the federal level, they are saying, these are where we are going to make our decisions. You got to have a plan, and unless you have a hazard mitigation plan, certain federal funds will not be available to you. And so everyone has gotten together, and we also within that recognize that Christian County has an emergency management organization, and very certainly we like to be able to work with our Christian County partners and allow for them to manage that on our behalf. Now, we do appoint within the Public Works Department somebody to act upon as a liaison with the emergency management team on Christian County. So I don't want you to think that we just hand it off to Christian County and we don't ever look at it again. We have individuals that do certain functions of that, but the document is very important. It's actually being submitted in its entirety to SEMA, and then SEMA will submit that on up to the federal level and so on, and then they will respond back and we will make the necessary revisions. But there needs to be a resolution by the City of Ozark in order to submit that as part of the requirement. I hope that was explanatory.
That was a good explanation. Any questions of Mr. Childers on the explanation? Okay, Mr. Galloway.
No.
Hold on, just real quick, Your Honor. I got a quick
I'm
question.
sorry. I'm sorry, what'd you say?
I said Mr. Poston.
I didn't see your hand, Mr. Poston.
Did I see Chief Arnold walk in just a while ago?
Yes, he's here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Chief, have you
want
read
him
this?
on camera? He's here.
What did you say, sir?
You read this, Chief?
I participated in quite a few of the sessions that we went through on this. I have not, I've been off for a while, so I have not read that final document. However, I was present for a lot of the planning sessions and worked with the city staff on preparing our portion of the entirety of the plan.
You're happy?
To the point of where I was involved, yes.
Okay.
Something that's like Steve needed or stated that we need in order to be compliant with not only the state requirements, but also federal requirements when it deals with, mitigating potential emergencies. One of the biggest things that is a potential issue for us is flooding, and that's something that we put a lot of stock in as far as our specific community. That's one of the biggest threats that we have is flooding, especially with some of the housing and stuff like that that's right on the river and everything.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments from council? All right, if none, Mr. Galloway.
I move we adopt resolution number 1951.
Motion made by Galloway, seconded by Smith to adopt resolution 1951. A roll call vote, please. We don't need a roll call vote on that, do we? No. All in favor? All right, all opposed? None? All right, it passes. Okay, Mr. Poston, second reading bill.
Yes, Your Honor. Excuse me. I move that we place Bill 3184 on its second reading.
Motion made by Poston, seconded by Smith to put Bill 3184 on its second reading. All in favor? Ms. Callaway.
An ordinance adopting updated urban service area tier maps.
All right, any questions or comments from council? I think we're all pretty familiar with it, but if not, well, go ahead and ask questions. Okay, if none, Mr. Poston.
Your Honor, I move that we adopt Bill 3184 as ordinance 20-076.
Motion made by Poston, seconded by Smith to adopt Bill 3184 as ordinance 20-076. Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Aller,
Aye.
Alderman Poston,
Aye.
Alderman Smith,
You're muted, Ted.
Alderman Smith,
Aye.
thank you. Alderman Flores,
Aye.
Alderman Schaefer,
Aye.
Alderman Galloway.
Aye.
We have 6 aye votes, motion carries.
All right, reports, Mr. Childers, anything?
I don't really have anything new to add. We do, that wasn't on the agenda. Like I said, we will be contacting you to set up some meetings for the budget coming up. And so we will be happy to answer any questions and show you what the proposed budget is and let you provide us with whatever revisions you might want. I just want you to remember that we do have a meeting or meetings this Thursday to be discussing some breakfast type topics or a topic. So certainly thank you all for committing to those times and so forth. So other than that, that's all I have, sir.
All right, you have a report from Ms. Payne from the Parks and Recreation. Any questions of her? Okay, how about Mr. Smith, the written report for planning and development? Any questions of him? Okay, the last item on the agenda is a COVID update. Just something very briefly. Governor Parson has announced a conference, not a conference call, but a press conference tomorrow afternoon at 4. I know he's under a lot of pressure to do a statewide mask ordinance. There was no preview given of what he was going to talk about, but he is talking at 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. And it'll be, I think, the Facebook, the state Facebook. You'll be able to find it. You all are good at that. So if you're interested in listening, why, that's what it will be about. So any other comments from council about anything? All right. Well, I wish you all a happy Thanksgiving. If I don't see you before then, Mr. Smith, did you?
Do we,
Yeah.
do we have a closed session tonight, sir?
Yes, sir.
Oh, that's on the back page and I didn't see that. Oh my goodness. Thank you. Yes, all right. If there are no further council comments, do I hear a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Smith, seconded by Galloway. Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Aller,
You're muted.
Here.
Alderman Flores,
Here.
Alderman Galloway,
Here.
Alderman
Aye.
Poston,
Aye.
Aye.
Aye here.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, I think it's I. But
Got me doing
Aye.
it.
Oh, boy. It's
Aye.
late.
Aye.
thank you, Alderman Poston, Alderman Schaefer, Alderman Smith.
Aye.
We have 6 ayes and present. We are.
All right.